Okay, so very pleased to see students here at this presentation even. Great. Thanks for coming. Very happy also to announce this second edition of the International Conference on the Inklings. Last year was the first time we arranged this here at this faculty. It was the first time there was an event related to Tolkien and C.S. Lewis at this faculty. And well, one of the plenary speakers from last year, Eduardo Segura, is with us here again this year, which is always a pleasure. We have many other speakers as well today and tomorrow, and we'll talk about them in just a few moments. Just to begin with, just to set the scene for the theme of the conference. As you can see here, the title is Death and Immortality in the Works of the Inklings. And frequently, even Tolkien felt that he had to reply to a lot of questions concerning the Lord of the Rings and this topic in particular. But facts are that Lord of the Rings is a late work of Tolkien's. He had begun writing many years earlier, already during the First World War, and he had already started to develop the themes and many other characters that would appear in different shapes all through his legendarium. And so I think that it's convenient just to recall a little bit what he had already said before the Lord of the Rings. I mean, I want to quote, just to begin with, a letter that Tolkien wrote in 1956, and this was a letter concerning some of the main issues of the Lord of the Rings. What is the story about? And he says here that I do not think that even power or domination is the real theme. The real theme for me is about something much more permanent and difficult, death and immortality. The mystery of the love of the world in the hearts of a race doomed to leave, that is men, and seemingly to lose it. The anguish in the hearts of a race doomed not to leave it until its whole evil-aroused story is complete. And with this, he is referring to the elves. So what we have here is basically stories that revolve around the destinies of elves on the one hand, immortal beings, and men on the other, and women, of course. Men and women, I mean, human beings. And what we have here is then, from the very outset, a difference between these two races, but at the same time, their fates are intertwined. There is what Tolkien himself calls a twin destiny, elves and men. And I think that if we look back to the Silmarillion, the first tales that he wrote in his legendarium, we can see this theme, this interlocked destiny between men and elves as very prominent already from the start. It's related, to a great extent, it's related to the idea of light, different sources of light and different qualities of light. For instance, the elves, they look to the stars as the most attractive source of light for them. Starlight is something which is more spiritual than sunlight, for instance. And there's a reason for this. Stars were created already in the beginning of the mythology. It was a divine creation, and it was something ethereal. And the first thing that the elves see when they wake up from their sleep and enter the world is starlight. So they become, they are in love with stars and starlight. Whereas men, they wake up to the sun when the sun has been created. The thing is that the sun and the moon, in Tolkien's mythology, they were created using a light that came from two mythical trees, the two trees of Valinor. And these trees, they were destroyed by the precursor to Sauron, who's in the mythology he's called Melkor. And he destroyed them together with the giant spider called Ungoliant. And once that happened, the trees became sullied. They were not pure anymore. So this is an impure source of light from then on. The stars, on the other hand, it's a pure source of light. Whereas the sunlight and the moonlight is not pure light anymore. It's become sullied, as Tolkien himself says. And this also marks a difference here. The interesting things to mention is that Feanor, the elf, he manages to capture the light of the two trees before they have been destroyed. He manages to capture the pure light, the blended light of the two trees. And so it's a holy light, it's a pure light, it's the imperishable flame of the godhead of the mythology. And he captures that light in the Silmarils, in these gems that he creates. And this will inevitably define the destiny of elves, but also of men in the world. Why? Because Fëanor, he commits a sin of not wanting to extract that light from the Silmarils when the Valar, the gods, ask him to do so. He says, no, I've put so much work into this creation, I don't want to spoil it. I wouldn't be able to create something similar again afterwards. He decides, and he decides to keep them for himself. And this is pictured as one of the main sins in Middle-earth. And we were talking about this before, Eduardo and I, and Eduardo said that basically what we are dealing with is an aesthetic fall, an aesthetic sin. It's a sin against aesthetics in the world. The godhead in the mythology, Eru Ilúvatar, he has given creation to the created beings as a gift. And it's not meant to be appropriated, like Fëanor does, this elf, when he creates the Silmarils. But he does so. And then he commits another series of atrocities, and he has to leave the holy realm of Valinor and settle in Middle-earth afterwards. And here is where the legendarium takes off, really. Here's where the stories of men and elves and their intertwined destiny really take off. And why do I mention this? Well, because I think that is intimately related to the idea of death and immortality in the whole work of Tolkien. And this twin destiny that we see in the great tales of the Silmarillion and that have a continuation in The Lord of the Rings. When, at the end of The Lord of the Rings, Aragorn and Arwen, when they marry, this mirrors a story that had taken place already in the first age of the world, between Beren and Luthien, which is present in the Silmarillion. And that story, that first story, is also a story of an elf maid marrying a mortal man, and what that led to. And that led to a whole series of stories, a whole series of tragic stories, but also stories of joy. And that is what it means to live in Middle-earth. It's a tragedy in the end for some. Some have to die and leave the world. Some can't die. They will have to be with the world until the world changes and ends. And how do you relate to this? It's intimately related to the concept here, to the theme of the conference. And this is what I want to explore together with the speakers here during this conference, today and tomorrow, and to try and figure out if we can reach some sort of conclusion or some sort of idea concerning what Tolkien wanted to do, what he wanted to say, and see how he expressed that in his literature. And we'll be looking at works, diverse works of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. As you know, C.S. Lewis was not only a friend of Tolkien, but also a colleague, and they were commenting upon each other's works during their years together in Oxford. In an informal sort of group that came to be called the Inklings, together with many other writers, among other writers, Charles Williams, who was also a writer of fantasy stories, or Owen Barfield, who had several theories on linguistics and the origins of linguistics. It was a very sort of diverse group. But what we have here is a topic for the conference that I think lies at the very heart of the intentions of both writers, to try and express through literature the mythological meaning of death and immortality for people. These are not just fantasy stories. They have applications, real applications for real people. And this is what I wish all of the speakers, I've invited them to come here and to talk about this. And let's see if by the end of tomorrow, by the end of the sessions tomorrow, if we can sort of round up this discussion to see what we have arrived at after the conferences. Now, there are several speakers that will be performing. Raul will be talking about them in just a moment. Just wanted to express my gratitude to the organization here. Maji, Ekaitsen, and Doni, who are helping out with everything related to the practical issues, and who will also be delivering speeches tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Also like to thank Enrique, who had the kindness to draw the art for the poster of this conference. And of course, Raul, who is co-organizer here with me, without whom I wouldn't have been able to do probably anything here, concerning here's the Master of Ceremonies here. So anything related to ceremonies, here you have my friend Raul, who will be explaining that to you. Thank you for coming.
Okay, I love this guy. I mean, after so many years working together, almost 20 years, first of all, as students, then with David, who is there yes, in his lesson for the master, now as teachers, it's a life together. So he has explained everything in a perfect way, and that's why I love him, because I always learn new things with Martin. It's great. So I'm going to speak about the sessions, what we are going to have here during those 2 days. We have tried to do something quite attractive, so hopefully you are going to enjoy our conference quite a lot. And we will start in just 15 minutes, with Guillermo Spirito. It has been our first encounter today, and I have to recognize that I am completely impressed. So I guess you will be as well. He comes from the Theological Institute of Assis, and he's going to speak about eucastrophe in Lewis and Tolkien. So you will learn about this concept, and you will probably enjoy it quite a lot. Then we will have a coffee break of 15 minutes. And after that, the presentation of a short film directed by Paulo Urquijo. He was with us last year. He has won a lot of international prizes, and he will present Jugando con la Muerte. So we will discuss a little bit about Gothic after the film. It's going to be a really good one. And probably then the high moment, the best moment of the conference for most of you, which is going to be a kind of refreshments and snacks in Elcar, where for free you will have wine, tortillas, pinchos, and you will have also the opportunity of being with us, with some of the speakers discussing about Tolkien, Lewis, about life, whatever you want. So everything, of course, will be very welcome, and that's the idea, to have, a kind of informal moment to share together, okay, those experiences. Then tomorrow we will have 3 students who were like you, just 2 years ago, the last year, and they decided to start working with fantasy. So it's super to have them here now as our equals, just presenting the papers. First one will be Andoni, who is at the very back, and he will speak about Tolkien Tree World, which is based on his TFN, and it was a super presentation. I was in the tribunal and I was impressed. So probably tomorrow you will be delighted. Then Maddie, I can tell you a lot of things about Maddie. She has worked with me for a couple of years, and she will speak about C.S. Lewis and about Lucy Pevensey, who is one of the main protagonists of the Chronicles of Narnia. And finally, Kite, who is there. He is also supporting us, doing a great job. And he will speak about another super fantasy novel about Harry Potter. So the title is Representation of Gender Studies in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And then he will speak about Hermione. Tomorrow, after then, we will have our secondary plenary speaker, Dr. Eduardo Segura from the University of Granada. And the title of his speech will be Arte y Mortalidad Élfica, Tolkien y el Don de la Muerte. And I can promise now that he has el don de la palabra. So he will probably speak pretty well about el don de la muerte as well, because you know how to speak about tongues. And again, I recommended it. Coffee break, of course, after that. And then we will have Professor Santa Maria. He was a scholar from this university. I don't know, probably you are too young, but he was our teacher several years ago. And he will speak about Tolkien en español, primeros estudios y obras traducidas. He's very well known, in the Tolkien world, if we say in a way. He was one of the first ones in translating works written by Tolkien from English to Spanish. So it will be quite interesting to be here. Then lunch, And in the afternoon, we will have Doctora Sara Molpeceres from the University of Valladolid. She will speak about la experiencia trascendente, lo humano, lo sagrado y el mito en C.S. Lewis. Coffee break. And after that, our last plenary speaker, who will be Dr. Miguel Ayerbe, who is a teacher from this university as well. And he will speak about el tratamiento de la muerte en la literatura germánica medieval. He has been just collaborating also with Martin and in several projects related to Middle Age literature. And probably, okay, you will learn not just from the Inklings, but also from the medieval literature, especially the Germanic one. And to finish, we'll have a super round table with 3 scholars, and they will be coordinated by Martin. So it's going to be a round table about translating Tolkien with Miguel Santamaria, who is not here, not yet, Eduardo, who is with us, and Guillermo. So we will have the chance of seeing, 4 masters and commanders of the study of Tolkien here, live. It's better than a concert of U2. Well, almost. They are more or less. Half 6 will be the concluding discussion and closer, driven by the 2 of us again. We will here just to say you goodbye. Thanks for coming on those things. We will finish everything with a guided tour around the Gothic center of Vitoria. This, unique city, one of the best ones in the world. And I'm from Gasteiz, sorry for that. But anyway, I promise you will learn something about this city, something new. So that's all from my part. Thanks for coming. Now it's going to be the turn of a proper speaker. Martin will be with Guillermo here in a sec. And enjoy the conference. And once again, thanks for coming.